of Black people in Chicago from the 18th century on up to the present through art within Chicago Public Schools. The starting point is at my school, Stagg School of Excellence, because that's where I'm at and I can see it unfolding. The vision is to get the museum embedded, the story embedded within all Chicago Public Schools. That's the vision. So what you just saw was the process it took to build the first exhibit at the Black Chicago Museum. We started with researching the history of DuSable, because the museum starts in the 18th century. So 1775. So here I am talking to Professor Reed, just making sure that my research is on the right track. The next piece that you saw was the sketch that the artist, Rhonda Gray, laid out after we discussed DuSable's history here in Chicago. It was on just a piece of paper, her sketch. The next piece is she and I, Rhonda Gray, at the school, in the hallway near the first wall that we're going to use to build the exhibit. And she's laid out the sketch on the wall. That's why you were able to see the lines, because this sketch is laid out now on the wall. The next piece is we've started to paint it. Well, she's doing most of the painting. I'm just, putting little pieces here and there. I am not an artist. But she has started the painting process of the sketch. And this was last summer, 2015, in July. And then the next piece is students coming to help, because the important part of the Black Chicago Museum is student involvement, because the museum is for them. So I I invited some students in my classroom to come back over the summer to help lay out the Exhibit 1, the mural. And then the last piece is what I do now, because the mural is finished, the Exhibit 1 is finished. I give tours twice a week so that it's just not sitting there doing anything. So twice a week, students come to the museum and I teach them the history of DuSable, Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable, and what he did in Chicago, and why his story is so important for them to know.
Is it the students at Stagg or from other?
The students at Stagg.
Where is Stagg?
74th and Morgan.
Near the stadium?
Yes, yes.
Football team.
So that's what the Black Chicago Museum is. It's a non-traditional museum that teaches the history of Black people in Chicago from the 18th century to the present through art and within the Chicago Public Schools. Yes.
I was just wondering, how is it going to be related to the DuSable Museum?
It's not. Because my museum, or the Black Chicago Museum, focuses on Chicago's history. I think DuSable focuses on all African American history, where my focus is just Chicago.
It's just Chicago?
Just Chicago.
Okay.
And the reason why I chose just Chicago, because I don't feel like that story is told. So that gets me into the next part of our agenda, which is why would I start this museum? There's a lot of reasons why I started this museum, but if I had to say the reason why is because I feel, number one, that children needed to know this history, and after I read The Warmth of Other Suns, that was the first time, and I'm embarrassed to say, that was the first time I had ever learned in great detail what the Great Migration was and how that impacts me. I had never known that, and I was fascinated by that story, and I wanted to tell everybody. And it really, since I'm a teacher, I felt like my students have to know this. My students have to know this, and it's not even enough for just my students. All students should know this. And so I began to realize that the Great Migration is really the middle of that story, because there's so much before the Great Migration, like you mentioned. So then I started doing more research, which came from this text, The Black Metropolis, and this text, Black Chicago's First Century. And then, to be honest, it really just hit me. Start a museum. Start a museum. So that took on many forms. I said, oh, I'll start in my home, like Margaret Burroughs. But then I don't want people in my home that I didn't know. So then I said, okay, well, I'll start a separate location. I'll, get a building. But then I realized I really don't have the money to do that. So then it hit me, just start at the school. My grandmother was a teacher, and she started a museum at her school. Not like this, but she did it. So I said, if she did that, I can do this. And so then that took on many forms. Once I said I started at the school, then I said, okay, now I gotta start collecting artifacts and all this. And I didn't, to be honest, I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to go the traditional way. I wanted to do something that would grab the students' attention. And I felt that art would. So I began looking for artists, got no reply. And I was walking up my steps in my house, and I looked at one of the paintings that I had purchased from DuSable's Summer Festival. And I said, I'm gonna contact her, which was Rhonda Gray. She's not here right now. So I contacted her, and we've been working ever since. And what's amazing about her is she teaches history. So not only is she an artist, but she knows this history, and she's passionate about this history, just like I am. Yes.
The piece that you may or may not be leaving out is you had a cooperative administrator and
Yes.
probably support from your
Yes.
fellow faculty.
Yes.
If you don't have those components, it's almost impossible to
Yes,
proceed.
yes, my principal is very supportive, which I'm very thankful for. So, back to the why, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So when I began to research, I saw more than just a story. I saw character building. I saw strength. I saw people uniting. I saw resilience. I saw just powerful individuals. So I felt that not only am I going to teach this history, but I'm going to use it to build character within the students, because we don't really focus on that heavily like we do the academic part of teaching. So that pretty much sums up the major reason why I wanted to do this museum, because it's a fascinating story that I felt is put under the rug, and it has so many qualities that could really help shape our students, our young students, in so many different ways. And their lives can go in totally different directions if they just know what their ancestors did before them. When you hear the story of Chicago 1833 through 1860, powerful. To come from nothing and to rise like they did, powerful.
I don't want to monopolize, but
No.
I'm extremely I'm impressed with what you're saying. For the thing that you're doing, I don't know if you got any grants, but
I did.
yeah, because there are grants available to people who have done far less. I'm
Tell us about the grants.
familiar with the Chicago Foundation for Education. Did you tap into them? Oh, they would give you $1,000 for that. I mean, I understand. No, I mean.
Well, I need to get that information.
Yeah, and also the CPS service learning, community service learning people have grants for projects that are done with students.
Okay, can you write those?
Or email us. Stuff too.
Okay.
Yeah, I tapped into some of those.
Yes.
What's your theory, as if you have one at this point, as to why more students are not interested or don't have interest in their history, our history?
One, because I feel like it's just not being taught. So I wouldn't say that they don't have an interest because, and I can only speak from my experience. When I'm teaching my students, not just this history, but when I teach them about what it was like to be enslaved, or if I teach them about Frederick Douglass or Booker T. Washington, they are glued to me. They enjoy it. Am I right? Am I right? These are two of my students. They really do. I'm not exaggerating. I took them to the DuSable Museum. They just loved it. So I wouldn't say that they're not interested. I just don't think it's being taught.
I know it's like with the,
I know it's not being taught. I'm sorry.
I watch PBS like many of us.
And it's part of the curriculum. Let's talk about that later.
Right, that's what I'm, yeah,
It's
I
not
thought we
being
had
taught
to
because it's
talk
not
about
following the curriculum.
I was
You're the whole
watching the other
group.
day about
Yeah.
forestry, this last week, about the history of the forestry department, and didn't realize that the Buffalo Soldiers were a very intimate part of the early days of the forestry. That they were the ones that came and helped put out some of the major forest fires in our national parks. And that's another thing that we considered that we weren't exposed to, had no idea of what our history was. Or Black Cowboys, you know, it's just so much that we're not exposed to. It, actually.
In terms of it being taught in the schools, it sounds like it isn't really. But I know when I was a kid, I used to, like I had 2 sets of encyclopedias, and if a movie came on television, I would run and get the encyclopedia. Today, I probably don't watch television without my laptop or iPad or something, because I'm always.
Right.
Do you have the opportunity to link to when there is something on television or somewhere that's accessible to get kids to do more research? And I'm also saying this because, you know, Roots is being redone and that's going to be on. And that, of course, was such a major media thing. It's not going to be as major this time around, but I guess they asked this one audience, you know, how many of you saw it the first time, and only half the people raised their hand. So I think there's some opportunity there, but are you able to find things that are digital or on television today to connect to kids?
Yes, actually with the exhibit 1, I showed the students the video that the DuSable Museum created on DuSable. So that is one piece. Another thing I do is bring in movies. Like I've shown them the Ruby Bridges movie. I've showed them African Americans Journey, I think Henry Gates put together. So yes, but as a whole, like there is a curriculum for reading instruction. There is a curriculum for math instruction. The school that I'm at, in the previous school, I had never seen a curriculum for African Americans or Africans, our history.
I should have brought
So, but I don't want to go off the agenda, so if you want to save your questions for the end.
Your student has questions.
We can go all the way.
Yes, Tayana. This is Tayana, she's in my classroom.
I just wanted to tell you, if you watch TV, you're getting one on the weekends, it'll be Black Chicago, when black people was in slavery, they was going through wars and everything.
These people probably sleep, I saw them. It comes out late at night.
Channel 11?
Yeah.
It don't come on late at night, it come on in the mornings too.
Oh,
In the morning, yeah, right. But see, they're asleep, they're at work.
That's not
Get
it.
out. You
What time does it come on?
See, why?
It just come on, it come on all day on the weekends.
On the weekend?
We have to,
And
you have to Google WTTW.
That's information you
Right. So is everyone clear on what the Black Chicago Museum is and why it's started?
I was gonna ask you, have you been to Dixon School?
Yes.
All that area?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so now,
What you did was clarify, because
Right.
I thought you had been given a room and that this room is full of artifacts. So now, I'm clear on,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
what I would.
It's in the hallway, and I'm gonna use all the wall space on the first floor to tell this history.
Did they tell you how long it will stay up?
Well, it's permanent, so.
Yeah, that's cool.
So now we're gonna take another gallery walk, same as the first one, on Exhibit 2. This is the exhibit that is currently underway. It has started. It will be finished by the summer of 2016. And those images are on this table next to the piano on up to the second table. So this gallery walk will be a little shorter because there's not that many images. And please continue to think about the 3 questions that are stated on the agenda and then be prepared to discuss. Let's keep our momentum up. Let's not lose it. All right. Let's go. Last gallery walk. And think about how it connects. Right, right.
The kid, what's going on?
God is good.
Amen.
Did you notice the sequence in the layout of pieces and what is the artist saying? Those are questions. No, based on, as you doing the gallery walk.
Yes, yeah.
What's going on?
Early Chicago Underground Railroad going to Canada. John Jones, who was a famous settler here, and astute businessman.
Jones Brothers, that Jones?
Jones, yeah, the Joneses, and and the sketching and the continuation of the plan, putting this exhibit together, and move it along, and all the components that need to be part of that.
Okay, anyone else?
I wasn't getting into the detail of it. I was just looking at what, I guess you say the artist or you combination, had chosen to put in the mural. So, you see the wagon train, to me that, see, I was a driver, so, pulling the wheel. And so that comes to part for a lot of things, because we did the mill runs, you see, Black culture, about that. We were on the railroad, as slaves, being transported from the East Coast, to the southern states, when the land was being sold for $125. So what I'm saying is that it's what you see, like you said, what do you see? So I saw these, it's almost like dreamlike, that's how I look at it. Because I'm an artist too, so it's how you interpret things. So I'm looking at it as images, not so much specifics, but as images, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, and then the artist laying it out.
Right, right. Anyone, thank you. Anyone else want to share what they saw?
Actually, I was kind of focused on the images of the hands and chains and then the black power hands. And so it just seemed to symbolize that there was power in breaking chains and, really knowing your history.
I noticed in most of them, there was a continuous mode of transportation, and I wondered why, with the horse and buggy and, I guess T-model Ford, you know, when we know that, there were other, you know, means of, them, leaving.
What about outside the painting? Did you see anything else that you noticed within the others? Did anyone see children?
Yeah, remember I told you about children.
Did
And that way-
you see
Yeah,
children
those over
here?
there.
No, I thought those were professional artists.
No, those were students.
Those were students?
I mean, there is a professional artist in those, but students are in the second table, working on the exhibit. So, the second exhibit is what happened after DuSable left Chicago. DuSable left Chicago in 1800. From 1800 to 1833, there were no black people here in Chicago. So this exhibit starts in 1833 and it stops at 1860. So this is still the antebellum period, right before the Civil War. So it teaches what happened during that time frame. So you saw the broken chain, the fist. What do you think that represents? You said power, right?
Yeah, well-
Because where are we coming from? If we're coming to Chicago, where are black people coming from? They're trickling in slowly but surely. Where are they coming from? The South. Slavery is still going on. Okay, so that's what that represents, that power, you're right. You mentioned Canada. Why would Canada be in this exhibit?
That was a stop on the Underground Railroad.
That's where they were trying to get to.
Get to.
That's the main place they were trying to get to. Chicago was kind of like a stopping point. But a lot of people, enslaved Africans, stayed in Chicago. Some went on, which was the Canadian exodus, but a lot stayed here too. And John Jones and the Underground Railroad, because during this time, the Fugitive Slave Act law is still in place. So that was the biggest fear for African Americans during that time. Am I going to get caught? I don't want to get caught. So that's why we had the Underground Railroad system. And Chicago was an abolitionist city, which was a surprise to me. Like, we worked to not get people enslaved going back down to the South, both whites and blacks. Worked hard to help protect these escaped slaves.
That's interesting when you think about Chicago as a sanctuary city.
Right.
You know, not.
Right. I wouldn't have thought that.
Immigration.
Right, yes.
I had a professor that was at the University of Illinois, Dr. Perrin. I said, when I write up my family history, I'm going to make sure I put him in it, because he said there were no slaves in Illinois, and there were. And I'll never forget when I took a class, and I said, well, let's see what you get, because you were punished for your comments. You know, I get a lot of D's and stuff. You know, but you see, I knew what it was for, you see, but my grades suffered because of the way you graded me, but I still taught. And my point is, I'll never forget though, I said when I came back in the service to finish up, because I was a long time, finishing, and I said, so let's see what happens now. Well, the point was, it was a crowded class, it was a black young man and young lady there, and I was sitting in the back, and they left. And I said, guys, I'm not going to drop another class. I'm going to stay in and see what I get. And I got a C out of him, but the point was, what I'm trying to say today is that the young, a white guy had raised his hand, full white, all the folks were white, raised his hand. He said, well, what about the blacks that came to Jamestown? He said, they're irrelevant. No people that God has made is irrelevant.
The blacks that did what?
You see what I'm saying?
Irrelevant.
No, but the blacks that came.
Those two that were in the class. See, it was a whole class, 30, 40 some people. You know how circles class are. We have been. The point is that they dropped the class. I stayed in it because I knew that I was one of those blacks who will always get my grade lowered because I spoke up. So I was used to that, and I just prayed, I said, God, I'm just gonna get what I'm gonna get. Because see, I had left and came back, you see. And so my point is the white guy who honestly, you know, just like any other student, raised his hand that day and said, what about the 19 blacks that came to Jamestown? And Dr. Perrin said they were irrelevant. And I didn't say one word. I said, God forbid, because, you know, I kept his picture. They put it in I See News, and I cut it out and put it on my wall at home. So I don't know.
So when do you have a tongue?
Through God said.
No,
So if you look on your next page, the second page, it outlines the 4 major themes within the second exhibit. If you go down to exhibit 2, it outlines the 4 major themes. Oh, you didn't have one, I'm sorry. Go down to exhibit 2, it outlines the major themes that are going to be displayed within the second exhibit. So the first one, migrating to Chicago. What was fascinating to me is that this is the first time you see black families, communities beginning to form here in Chicago. That was fascinating. Like, wow. You know, for some reason I just felt we were just already here. But, you know, to know that history is amazing. And then the second part is the Fugitive Slave Law of 1793. In the Underground Railroad and the Illinois Black Codes. So there were many homes and even churches used as the Underground Railroad. John Jones Holmes, who was the individual that you saw, he used his home. There were the Big 4 women who were conductors for the Underground Railroad. Quinn Chapel, which is still in existence today on 24th and Wabash, was used as the Underground Railroad during that time period. And then the next piece is Chicago's urban transformation. So Chicago is a baby at this time. It's still a town. It becomes a city in 1837. So you don't see the skyscrapers. You don't see the streets. You don't see the sidewalks. You don't see the big homes. You see muddy, dirt road, mud, grass, marshes still. Back then, homes were only one level, no alleys. So Chicago is urbanizing at this time. And a lot of black people helped to make that happen, to build homes, and they build businesses. And then the economic development. There were a lot of African Americans who came here during that time who started their own business. Barbershops was huge back then, starting their own barbershop. Carriage businesses and churches. They built churches. So economic development. Oh, and then those who didn't have their own business were doing mostly domestic work.
Lounges.
Lounges.
Did you mention of West Point Baptist Church as an Underground Railroad site?
I did not mention that.
You didn't see anything pertaining to that? I only heard it as hearsay.
No, it wasn't founded until 1918.
1918.
During the
So
Great
it would be in this
Migration.
time period, right?
Is Queen Chapel in the?
Yes, yes, I mentioned Quinn Chapel. Quinn Chapel began in 1847.
At a different location.
Right, at a different location, right. Small group of people.
I'm curious, when you're talking to students about how blacks helped to develop Chicago and the businesses and all that, do they ever ask you what happened?
What do you mean?
I mean, in other words, the connection between the contemporary period and that period.
Well, since this exhibit is still underway, I haven't had a chance to start that process yet. The only tours that I've given are on DuSable.
Right.
But no, they haven't.
They never asked,
They
well,
have-
why
no.
isn't it the same?
Right.
I would like to know, if, the reason why I commented like I did with the young lady is because a lot of things I like to watch, including that kind where she was talking about, is all at night. And by me being retired, I know it's not on in the day. So those who are still working are not missing nothing, but I know you're asleep because you gotta get up so early to go to school or wherever you work. But what I'm saying is that for me, I go along with what you're backing up on the children. And that's what I'm looking at too. It's one thing to engage students in what they're doing, but if you listen sometimes to the way they talk even outside, it makes you wonder, are grown-ups making this all up? You see, how did that happen to us? We have computers, we have phones, we can go on the internet, we can do this and that. There's no black folks. See, when we grew up, you didn't have black folks on commercials. You see on TV. So how is it that we got black folks on commercials, we got a black president, and you know, he got 2 black daughters, you see, married a black woman, you see, but they can believe that. But what I'm saying is, do they really believe that black folks were enslaved, and then you got a person like Trump running for office?
Well,
trying to
they're
put us
learning.
back in slavery? You see, I question the child, and I would say between the age, I think you all call them what, 3rd grade or something, I would say 8 years old to even about 11 or 12. What do you all call it, adolescents or somebody? You all got names for everybody.
Yeah, we label. When you go to school,
You label everybody
yeah.
in the education system, you know. But what I'm saying is, I seriously question, because I should have brought it today, because it would have been the perfect setting. I found a black, what do you call it, book of historical content that was supposed to be used for, what, elementary or high school, even though, as far as we know, it's civilians, as I call it. We don't think that it's being taught, even though it was passed by law. But this book is a curriculum book, you know, that a teacher this thick, that you would have used.
So you're saying that you don't think that this.
Students really believe that.
Students believe it.
Because, I mean, if you don't mind, you ask them in front of us. You see, they'll back you up. Or my teacher said this and
Well,
that.
that I can attest for my age group that I work with, anything I say, they're gonna believe.
Right, but don't you get what you just said? Anything I said, they're
Right,
gonna believe you.
right,
But I'm saying that
right.
they had to put in their own words and embody this language that you have taught them. Did you really believe what she told you, that we were enslaved, that people worked all night, they did this and they did that, and, you know, women were raped continuously? You had these offbeat folks, you know, coming out light-skinned with green eyes and stuff. You know, I have cousins that still have that feature. So what I'm saying is that it's like, okay, you see, and then you look at some of our people today who are still carrying that trait. Do they believe that? That's what I'm wondering.
Look at the black background, the page 435. I think that shows you the answer to the question about business. Look at 435. See if it doesn't show you a business chart. Business continued to grow through the years. That's one of the themes the Black Chicago History Forum talks about.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Rate
see-
of growth
see, that's the
of
chart.
Negro population
Yeah.
and of Negro-owned businesses. Okay.
See, through the years, always more and more retail, more and more wholesale, more and more everything, until we used to compete with New York as to which city had the greatest number of black businesses. Remember, we had our first bank in 1908 here? Our first theater in the country was here, the peak in 1905.
I think honestly, they don't understand, primarily because they're not really being taught using some of the materials that may or may not be available. I don't think they understand. Because they'll say during Black History Month, Martin Luther King helped us become free, and they can't take it any further back than his name, and they can't bring it forward with it. And primarily because they aren't being taught.
Right, I show them a video, the DuSable video. So remember, the tour for them is just DuSable at this point, because this one is not finished. So they see the video, because most of them don't even know who DuSable is when I bring them to the museum. They do not know who Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable is, they've never heard of him. So I show them the video from the DuSable Museum which gives a history of his biography here in Chicago. And then we talk about that. I give them a text from a book that I got for kids on DuSable, so they can read it and make connections to what they saw in the video. So my goal is to not just talk to them. My goal is for them to form their own thinking. So we do a lot of discussion. And then after that, we walk down to my exhibit and then build on what we saw in the video. Okay, so now let's look at the exhibit. What did we see from the video? Oh, we saw a trading post. What did we see in this trading post? What was the purpose of him building the trading post? And we have a discussion about it. Okay, so now we see Chicago today in this mural. Why do you think the artist would put Chicago today? Does DuSable have anything to do with that? And then we talk about it so that they can form their own thinking. And that seems to help them stay engaged, because if I just talk to a bunch of 13-year-olds about history that they've never heard about, it's
You should have heard.
right, one ear out the other. But I can only go by what they've seen. They're very engaged. They do hold a conversation. I don't have to pull it out of them. They are very engaged. And at the end, I ask every group, did you enjoy being here? Give me a thumbs up if you did. Kind of. No, I did not like it. So most of it, I tell them to be really honest, and most of them put their thumbs up. And the reason why I think they really do is because after I give them that tour, they come back to me about anything they've seen connected to African American history. Oh, I've seen this. I mean, it can have nothing to do with the South.
Right.
But they know Miss
Planted that
Lawson,
seed.
right, loves her history. So, does that answer your question?
That's a good thing.
I think
And then I wanna, before, I know we got a lot of questions, guys, but I have my students here, and they're with the last part, and the artist who's creating the exhibit. So if they can just share, and then we'll continue the questions. So Jamia and Tayana, come on up, and Nakia. So we're gonna have the students speak first. They're gonna introduce themselves. And they're gonna share their reflections at the Black Chicago Museum.
She got notes.
And this is strictly from them. Go ahead, Jamia.
Hi, my name is Jamia Jones, and I am a 3rd grade student of STAC, and I like flipping and dancing all the time. What happens at the museum is we give tours on the museum about Black people in Chicago and ask them questions on what they learned. We ask if they enjoyed it or not, and when they leave, we'll invite them back again. What I learned is DuSable built a barn, a workshop, a poultry house, and more interesting things. He sold food, clothes, and tools. The Black Chicago Museum helped me by thinking of how people sacrifice their life for us to sit in these seats and go to school and ride buses. This is my speech. Hi, my name is Tayana Bosman, and I'm a 3rd grade student at STAG. And I like to read. I'm going to help give a presentation today. What happened at the Black Chicago Museum is we give kids of all ages tours to learn about their history and teach them about the Black heroes that helped segregation end. What I learned is DuSable was the first to build a trading post, and he married a Potawatomi. He left Chicago because he learned that the Europeans were coming. He didn't want them to take over his businesses. Because of DuSable, we have a lot of homes and businesses today. The Black Chicago Museum changed my life by helping me to be kind and nice and treat others with care, just how my ancestors were. And if you need encouragement, go to the Black Chicago Museum.
Oh, very good.
Do you mind if I got a lot of what you said. Do you mind telling me, okay, you said if you would like to get more encouragement, go to the museum. I apologize, I can't relate. Where is it located?
It says Staggs School of Excellence.
Is it where?
Staggs School of Excellence at the on 74th and Morgan.
So how, I guess this supposed to, it's a term that's supposed to.
That's with Nakia. So Nakia Brown, you come on up. This is one of the artists at the Black Chicago Museum. You've seen her, you did see her in one of the images. She's going to speak on her experience at the Black Chicago Museum.
So, good afternoon, everyone.
Good
My name is Nakia Brown. I don't have a speech written down. And I'm an artist. I don't really, pretty much everything that I would have said has already been said, except how I came to be a part of it. And so, Lanaye talked about meeting Rhonda. Rhonda and I worked on another mural because we both dance. And so at the end of her working on the first exhibit, she called me up to kind of help her out with some details. And so in doing that, I kind of helped her out, and then she brought me on board to help with this. And it's been an honor to be a part of it. And I just really appreciate you, Lanaye, because I'm also a fan of Black folk in general, and more specifically, I'm really a fan of learning about who we are, because it's important, and also teaching who we are. So I'm excited about it. That's just in general what my experience has been, how I got involved. I don't know what else to say specifically if y'all got some specific questions for me, but that's all I got right now.
Very good.
Are you a muralist primarily?
I'm not a muralist primarily. I'm a portrait artist primarily, but I do all types of stuff. I've been doing art for the past 20 plus years, and I'm not the type of artist that just draws because it just meets my fancy. I just love to draw. That's not me. I tend to draw based off of somebody else's vision. So someone noticed a talent in me a long time ago, and they said, "Nakia, can you do this for me?" I said, "Sure, I'll do my best." And it can continue on. They said, "Oh, that's good. Can you do this?" And so when people ask me to take part in whatever, they got a vision, I'll do my best. And so far, I do all types of craft. Yeah,
I'm on the board of the Southside Community Arts Center, so I was wondering.
I'm gonna holler at you. I'm gonna holler at you, Miss Genealogy, too.
Have you considered, with this new trend in adult coloring books, of doing a coloring book that might address histories?
I haven't considered it at all, but you just planted that seed for me. But I have seen the adult coloring books, and I think it's something that's really good for adults.
Like Black superheroes.
Yeah, you just planted the seed.
So, I came in late and I apologize. So are you saying that your new museum is located within the school?
Yes, it's a non-traditional museum, yes, that's embedded within the school.
That's the Chicago Public School?
Yes.
Okay. They are amenable to your,
Good question.
I'm sorry.
are they amenable to your specific designation?
They are welcoming the museum, yes.
Is there a black principal?
Yes,
Female?
yes. So my only challenge, and maybe someone can help me with this, not only, but one of the challenges, and a lot of people bring this up, is how are you protecting this? How are you protecting? How are you protecting this? And right now, I don't have any protection. If CPS came in tomorrow and said, "I want this off," it will be off.
Your protection's got to be with parent council, isn't it?
No, protecting it in what way?
No, not
To
Dixon.
keep it up.
Copyright.
Yeah, sort of keep it up, to keep it up. Now, we have the sketches,
You know.
so, that, I have that, I could do it again.
Right.
But of course, it takes money to do
Right.
this, so, and if they did, to help me be at peace, if they did come in and say, "We want this off," I will not feel like it went to waste, because from the start to right now, there have been a lot of students who have already benefited from this.
Can I just jump
But
in? I wanted to jump in because there was a question, I think, right there about how do you keep the students engaged? And you kind of touched on it a little bit. And in my experience in just drawing, just being at the school and just working on the mural, whenever I'm there, students always stop.
Right.
And they're always interested to find out who is this? And I will say that because we may not necessarily have a lot of information, adult or youth, when they see it, the first thing they may recognize is the Underground Railroad. So that seems like it's prominent as soon as you see it. Oh, I recognize that. And so it's been it's a deliberate effort to emphasize that this is about Black Chicago. And so that's kind of been my experience. But I can definitely say, as long as it's in front of them, they'll be engaged. You know, if you just present it to them, they're interested in it. So just to answer the question, how to keep them engaged, keep doing what you're doing.
But you know, I can't help but go back to how they're interpreting it vis-a-vis the images of crime and violence in Chicago. You know, how they sort of make the connection between that and then even images of President Obama and Michelle Obama. You know, sort of like, okay, you got this great, iconic sort of representation of Black people, but then at the same time, you have the crime and violence. So how does that connect with all of that?
I would say that we need to give our children a little bit more credit as far as understanding, and they, just like us, not give us so much credit, because there's a lot of things that we don't understand that we're exposed to as well. And there may be some dissonance. You may see something that contradicts the other things, but we see both. And so I think that with them seeing both, they're able to say, so if I'm talking to Ms. Lawson, she's telling me the history about the things that happened in the past towards Black people, as a young person, even though I see we got a Black president, I also see the 16 shots, I also see all the different things that's happening to Black people. So I can believe that that might have happened, even though we got a Black president. So I can say that there's been some change, but I also can say that there still needs to be some change to happen. So I think that at the very least, the young people are open to learn more, to understand, because they're not really sure about why, what's the contradiction there.
So the takeaway for them is more work needs to occur.
Yeah, what happened? Who are these people?
How are you? How are you being funded, like materials, et cetera? Does that come out of the school budget? Do you need some?
So I've raised, out of my pocket. Very passionate about
the teachers.
That's what teachers do.
I have, and I'm not ashamed, I mean, not ashamed, but I'm not, you know, scared to say I donated, about 4,000 of my own money to this project. I've raised through a Donors Choose grant, I've raised, $2,000. So that's where the community gives into like a pool of, funds, and then I can have it.
GoFundMe.
Did GoFundMe for this one, and I just received an AUSL grant to finish off this mural. So if you have any other suggestions for, because there will be a next exhibit, because I said this will tell the story up until the present, so I'm not even halfway finished.
Yeah, how do you get a chance to go view the?
You can come to the school during school hours, 8:45 to 3:45. I will not be able to give tours because I'm still teaching. If you want to set up a time after school, I can do that. But you can come at any time during the school day and just let the office know that you would like to see the museum.
And someone else will take you, walk you through?
No, because it's still grassroots, it's just really me. Unless Nakia is there working on it, but no other teacher can really talk about this except for me, not even the principal. And I teach.
Videotaping a presentation or the process.
That's a good idea.
You gotta document, that's what we're.
Right.
Document. We gotta document it, because like you say, you're upstairs.
Right.
But if you would videotape this whole process and get talented kids to narrate and interview the artists and yourself and the process of making this happen.
Right. And remember, and not to take away from that at all, but remember my goal is to create this for children. So that's my focus right now. My focus is to create time for them to learn from this. So I haven't really put in much time for adults to come to see the mural.
But even in saying that, just based on what I said, we know that that's your focus and that's been at the forefront. We still are documenting.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you can edit it and then
Right.
bring it back, because each year you're gonna have new kids, but the mural and the process and everything that you've done is already done. So how do you share that? It's back mapping, sharing the process, so, and then you're going forward, so they want to see the beginning.
The whole story, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I have to create
Gotta be
something,
done.
yeah. Yes.
I was gonna, if you may, say, help you get a step ahead of the Board of Education. And that is, once you see Kerry James Marshall exhibit, you'll see all that work he did was done on large, not panels, but the canvas. And he literally took it. Yeah, but I'm saying it has the button like, for tents, you see, that's what's holding it up. But each one of them, like I said, is that big and that large. You see, in other words, about 8 to 12 feet high. And once you see that, and to know that that's how all of that is done, I mean, it's in other words, if you even attempted to even go back and start doing these on a pre-canvas, which you think that would be enlarged to, that means you can take this to other schools and say, hey, here's what STAG is doing. Here's the exhibit that we did the first go around in 2016. Because see, this is already old in my opinion. In other words, you're moving on to a new day. So how do you preserve, not just with video. See, the film will go bad. They doing that in Hollywood. Everything can blow up with film. That's something that can be ignited. You want something that can be preserved. And it wouldn't hurt that if you can contact Kerry yourself, so you'll know that, say, wait a minute, yeah, I can understand that, because see, I mean, once you see it, then I can just shut my mouth.
Absolutely, I'm definitely checking it out.
Yeah.
I have to say that I commend Lanaye for the vision I commend you for the vision that you had, because whatever grassroots or whatever thing that you had to go and you established, you met that goal as
Right.
you continue to go
That's
on.
right.
So
You're familiar with the Dixon School, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Is yours similar to that on the walls and letting kids see that and learn each?
Right,
I-
yep, it's probably, mine are a little bigger, they're big murals. From what I understand, Dixon has small pictures
Not
along
only.
the wall. Okay, well then I haven't seen it
No,
then.
because they have
I
all
haven't seen
third
it.
floor, second
The
floor, everything.
entire school.
Yeah.
It's
Sculpture, African
it's a
sculpture.
museum in itself.
Okay, but then I don't know what you're referring to.
That's
then.
Outside of the school?
I've seen the school, I've been to the school, but I haven't seen the piece that you all are talking about.
No, we're talking about the whole situation.
Okay,
African art, African American art, arts, African sculpture, they don't tear it up, that's ours. You see, it's right there.
so are they bringing students down and
No,
teaching
you
them
see
what
it
that
every day,
is?
you can't help but look up there, oh, this, that, every time you walk to the bathroom, there it is right there.
But they have an annual opening where the entire community
Yeah, I've
is
been to that.
invited.
Right, but that stays out there is what we tell you.
So mine probably is a little different.
It's not as large, I'm sure.
Probably no.
3 floors.
No, yeah, no.
Well, she's just starting out.
Right.
No, no, we're trying to give her that dimension,
Right.
that's all.
So how is it then that the Dixon exhibit is preserved? I guess it's.
No, see, I can answer that question, that's why I didn't want to sound sarcastic, because that's why I call it being a step ahead of the Board of Education. And the reason being, if we had a discussion of that at Logan, when they were doing the Afro-Covert exhibit there the other year in 2013, and that was my question. And believe it or not, it is not protected in any kind of way. You said, what do you
Dixon
mean?
was.
Dixon, right, the principal was there, and the person who became principal after her was there. And they were the ones who were the panel who was asking questions of the audience. And that was my question, what happens when you, as the principal, leave, and all that art, all that African sculpture, all that you can think of if you've ever been in there, It's like, what happens to that? And nobody could answer that because it doesn't exist. And they, the principal, said it doesn't exist. And no, it has not been cataloged. Think about it. All that you have seen is not cataloged. Duh. Now, that's what they said. That came from their mouth to the ordinance. That was my question.
Can I ask you one more? Yeah. Do you allow, okay, you're open during school hours. Have you had schools come and visit and see?
They've asked, but because I haven't created a process for that, I don't promote that. I don't want it to be sloppy or unorganized or unprofessional. So,
You get it.
yeah.
Yeah, you will.
Right.
Well,
But feel free to come to the school. And, you know, since you know what it is now, you really don't need me. You can come and see it, because it is a difference when you see it in person, right, Nakia, than when you just see it on pictures.
So you're in
It's
session
very
now?
powerful.
You're in session now?
We're still in school now, yes.
Okay, the hours that we could just, we have to get a pass from the
You have to
principal?
go to the office, and then that'll all be, they know, that I've already talked to the principal about people possibly coming in just to see the work.
Okay.
So she's fine with that. You
After
just
what
come
hour that we
From
will?
8:45 to 3:45.
Okay.
Is there, since Chicago Public Schools purportedly has this new interest in actually implementing the law and interjecting Black history in the curriculum, even though there's been criticism of other curriculum, could you make it a part of the curriculum?
That's my goal.
Okay,
I've
so
asked my
you're-
principal if I
okay.
can strictly teach this
Uh-huh.
next year.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if that's gonna
so-
happen, but I've asked.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, is there a way to sort of incorporate the physical museum structure into the curriculum so that
Right.
even if you left or whoever left, it would still
That would
be?
be nice.
Yeah.
That would be
well,
really nice,
it's
yeah.
supposed to be, because, you know, the history, the curriculum is already laid out by the state of Illinois.
Mhm.
And Black history is incorporated into the curriculum, and I'm a primary teacher also, and just like me, if you study yourself, in kindergarten, second grade is community, third grade is United States history. So it's incorporated. The problem is that we as teachers forget to personalize learning, and that's what Lanaye is doing. She's personalizing learning through the study of African American history and Chicago history, local history, and what is happening, and it's evolving because she's starting with the art and African American history, and we're all a part of it. And her thing is to connect it to self, and the kids connect it to the larger society, which is the local history. So I want to just say it's a huge undertaking, but it's part of the curriculum. So she should not have any pushback. There should not be any pushback because you're following the curriculum.
Right.
And she's doing it through the arts.
But you know what, that's the thing, I don't know whether the curriculum actually has a component that says visual arts or, you know, actual art. So that would be like a component of the curriculum, but then you have a component of that that includes the visual arts.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever way you get, if you theme something,
Right.
it's just like when I was at Metcalf, I themed the dinosaurs. You knew that I was teaching dinosaurs in my classroom because of the arts. Because everything was that, the literature strand, the art strand, the math strand, everything we themed it, and that's what you're doing. You're theming African American local history through the arts and the art of writing. There's the art of writing, the art of reading, the art of drawing. I mean, it's there. So, and she's blessed to have a principal that is allowing her to do so, but it's still.
That's half the battle.
It's a major battle. Yeah. So I think it's wonderful.
I want to say, one of the things, we just relying on my own experience, I entered the Chicago Metro History Fair in 2012 with a group of students from Park Manor Elementary. That's where I'm based. I'm a part of the Park Manor Alumni Association. And, you know, that is old. That's been going on forever. but you don't see a lot of black
That's right,
schools
that's right.
participate. And we were very fortunate. I had 15 students, again, a cooperative principal. They allowed me to pull the students out of class every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and we trained for the Chicago Metro History Fair. And we were fairly successful. We did get to a state level with our exhibit. Well, the exhibit involves art. They have different levels that you can participate, but we did an exhibit. And so that's another way to get kids involved with history. And the Metro History Fair does give you a template and a theme, but when they gave us the template and the theme, we took Black history and filled in that template. So on a personal level, I would love to see more Black schools get involved in what is already out there. You know, a resource that's already out there.
And don't forget the bus that's over the bridge there in Michigan, and those gold plates that show you where his cabin. You saw his
On the
cabin.
bridge?
Right, so
Right.
that's a tour exhibit.
Right.
You know, kids
Right,
can-
that's where you started,
Mhm.
on where the statue
Right.
is, right? So, thank you all for coming to my
Yes, right.
presentation. If you want to keep in touch with me, I put my website at the bottom and my email, and then I have some cards on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Yes,
nice.
can I mention one other thing? Dixon has which you might already be aware, there is a movie, a documentary, and I'm going to get the name either wrong or right, so I'll tell you both that I can remember. I don't know, you can Google it. It's either the Curators of Dixon or,
That's what it
that's it, the Curators, okay. Curators.
Okay, so that's why it's so important for her to document this, because when she goes, wins the golden apple.
Yes.
Her story, and it will be left. So the thing is that when Lanaye's gone, it's over? No. But because she documented it through a book, through a video, through the internet, the Instagram, I don't know anything of Facebook, yard book, I don't know what it's called, then you have a legacy. But if it only happens because you're there, yes,
So I got some more work.
then you got some more work.
Yes, you do.
I want to share, donate books, History Comes Home, which I co-wrote at National Louis University, which merges family history with public history, and across the curriculum, which is art and videoing. There's a 2-minute video in here on how to merge what the kids learn in family history with the public history, and that's why I was so hot on telling you, videotape, document, write the stories, share the stories, document, put it on paper. That's all we are, genealogists. Dorothy Roberts said if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. If you didn't draw it, it didn't happen. Didn't she say that?
Yeah.
So we want to add this to your collection of
You started doing videos.
oh, I think
Oh, he's got it.
I mean, little segments.
Yeah.
Yes.
and then why little kids that still today that you have to videotape.
Well, John and JP, John Rogers, can you stand up? Has been a great John and I went to high school, Kenwood Academy together. And since I started this project in 2012, he has been helping me with anything that I need for free. Since then, he has come to meet with me and Professor Reed, and he has helped the artists with painting. Every event that we've had, he comes and he records it, so we do have some footage.
Okay.
What else do you do? And researching. He's a
Okay.
research
Great.
group. So you want to say anything?
I'm just like Lanaye and the kid. I really feel it's a spiritual thing with me. Thank God that she did something like that. And also, I like the fact that there was a challenge. You know, I never met anybody that wanted to build a museum. So, like you guys say, to have a legacy is so important. And to touch on some things you guys are saying, I think one of the mistakes that we make is that we're not teaching our kids who they are at home. And so sometimes they go to school, people are miseducating them. And so we have to be bold in the truth because God is the truth. And I think that what we're doing together, if we sacrifice together, this is gonna be something great in Chicago, and I think all over the world. So as she goes along, I always tell her, man, you know, don't worry about it because God already has everything you need in place. Just keep on moving, and everything you think you need is gonna show up unbelievably, you know. Because God puts it on our hearts to do things that seem impossible. And so, you know, as we go along, I just tell all of them all the time, just have fun with it because it's going to happen anyway, but enjoy the moment, you know. So I tell all the time, we're a team, all of us, you know, and if we're willing to sacrifice for these children.
Talking to them about Black experiences and so forth, and he had rappers there and speakers there, and it was just a beautiful thing. So it's all a part of our teaching the breadth of the young people, so they'll get a part of it. And let me encourage you also, I'm on the board of the Southside Community Arts Center. When we have an opening, if you could bring some of those kids there to see Black art, which is really the whole theme that she's talking.
Yeah,
Just
right.
getting you more and more.
And the executive
More field trips.
And the executive director is one of my former students. Let's see who am I? Sure. I was always Methuselah.
Uh,
She was just a young teacher.